Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We do hope you're keeping very safe and well under such difficult circumstances once again. I never thought I would say that during an Antonio Conte era, but here we go again on the Last Word on Spurs. If you're listening to the show for the very first time, you can find us on iTunes, on Spotify, on Audio Boom, or across a range of different social media platforms. We're, of course, on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And for better or for worse, definitely for worse on one of these nights, we're also live on YouTube. I'm joined by three great guests to the Last Word on Spurs. Back on the show, delighted to have alongside me, Frankie Major. Frank, on the highs we've had over the last few weeks, what have we just witnessed?
Humiliation, embarrassment. That's brutal, Rick, to be honest with you. And unfortunately, I expect it off a lot of them players now. And that's the sad thing, because we've got so many bad attitudes and just poor players in this squad. And it's just evident tonight. That is up there with the worst humiliations we've had as a football club. The lowest ranked team in European club competition have just beaten us. Whatever team we put out, we should be beating FC Mura. It's humiliating. And I don't know what to say, Rick. I thought, with the appointment of Conte, I didn't expect nights like this to happen. But again, it's expected off a lot of them players. They've been doing it for a long time now. They're not going to change. You know the ones I'm talking about. And there was some absolutely shocking performances. No desire from some of them players. And I'm embarrassed, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Frank. It's hard to disagree with what you're saying there. And a lot of people feel the same in the comments. And at a time like this, Frankie, obviously you're a regular. It's nice to be welcoming two returning guests. We wish it was under better circumstances. First up, it's been a while. It's fair to say I've been trying to get this man on the show for a very, very long time. Finally, we've made it happen. I can't apologise enough, Paul. It's on a night like this. We've got the great Paul Hawksbee from talkSPORT. Paul, how are you? Lovely to see you. Wish I could have given you a better game to come on and review.
Yeah, well, at least we've got plenty to talk about. It wasn't a sort of mundane 0-0, was it? Well, that would have been bad. But even a sort of a 2-1. If we'd nicked it at the end, we would have been saying we got away with it. So maybe it's the reality check that everybody needed. And I think, as Frank was saying, some of those players, we're giving them second, third, fourth, fifth chances.
Yeah.
And some of the comments Conte has made after the game, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, suggest that he knows that this is a squad that's not fit for purpose. I wonder if he... I think they come in sometimes, managers at Tottenham, they get seduced by the real estate. They look at the ground and they look at the training ground and they think, well, this is some club. And then they see what they got to work with on the pitch beyond a handful of quality players. And I think it's a bit of a shock. And I think it's been a shock to Conte, really. I think he knows just what he's facing now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we've got Conte's quotes that we'll be obviously discussing, and I think it's very, very telling. And I know, Frank, obviously we've discussed this, I think, off air as well on our WhatsApp group, and we know what a big job he has in store. And I think we panicked, Paul. I said to you off air a couple of minutes ago. I mean, reading some of the quotes Conte said, he said, "I'm happy to be here." I thought, my God, he's only been here 5 minutes. What's he trying to say to us?
He said, "I'm happy to stay." I was thinking, well, like he was going to get a cab to Manchester tonight or something. Yeah, honestly. But I mean, the stuff he said, Tottenham, or he said, he basically said the squad isn't good enough at the moment, and I think he obviously thought they were better than they were. And he looks at them in training and thinks they're better than they are. But once they get out on that pitch collectively, they're a bit of a rag bag at times. Certainly when, say, you go beyond that first 11.
Yeah, I mean, that did worry me, Paul. I'm not gonna lie. Those 4 words, "I'm happy to stay." Bearing in mind, he's only just signed the contract. And you felt we must have crowbarred the doors to keep him at Hotspur away for the night, and we did get him over the line. So, listen, let's hope he's here to stay because, my God, we do need him, and we do need some work for him to do from a magician perspective, even though he says he's not a magician. Michee, we've got the artist Michee with us as well. Michee, lovely to have you here. Been a while, I think, since you've come back on, Michee. We've changed manager 3 or 4 times. So, I think nothing new with Tottenham. How are you, firstly? You well? Let's just unmute you, Michee.
Yeah, no worries.
We've got you now. We can hear you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. It's just I wish there was a better day to come on. I would have even taken us against Leeds for me to come on and have a word. But it's on paper it's frustrating because on paper if you look against both teams, we should be winning this like 3-0 easily. Probably. So for this to happen, especially coming off the last one, I was quite confident going into this game. Especially with Conte's motivation and his attitude from the things that we've seen in the past. So for the performance that I've witnessed today, I mean, it's frustrating. At this point, we're kind of we're used to it. Of course, Tottenham fans are used to it. So I mean, there's not much for me to say as opposed to just hoping that we improve, you know?
Indeed. Right, well, let's get right into it. Frank, let's start with you because it was a Mura winning stoppage time, not the Mura that we became so fond of course, in the Champions League. A 2-1 win for, like I say, a side that I will explain where they are in the league. But before I do, and where they are in terms of their status in football, the final whistle went, which meant for Spurs now they can't win the group. And if they go through, they will face a two-legged playoff in February. Hardly ideal in terms of what we need. But give us your overall thoughts, Frank, on that performance, like I say, against NŠ Mura in that defeat.
Well, a lot of players failed their audition, quite simply, in front of Conte. Ryan Sessignon, that was cynical when you're on a yellow card to dive in like that. It's schoolboy stuff, and he's not a kid anymore. And he does something like that. Dele Alli, I mean, Rick, we speak about him quite often. I cannot get my head around. I can't remember a player who is at that level, the highest of highs, back-to-back PFA Young Player of the Year. He can't even complete a simple pass anymore. His head is gone at Tottenham. Davinson Sanchez plays on skates. It's been years of the same. It's been absolute. He's horrific. He won't change. He's got no balance and coordination. And he's so easy to turn. Matt Doherty, these are the same players that we all know, these players, and how many managers they've let down, and the fact that they're not good enough for a club like Tottenham Hotspur. And I want us to be ruthless now. I don't want any more chances. I don't want to see people saying, oh, well, there's a player in there. Oh, you know, he might come back. And it's not going to happen. We've got to be absolutely cutthroat and ruthless now. We've got to back Conte. We've got to get rid of these players, take what we can get for them. Even if we send them out on loan, just get them out of the club. And start again with Conte and back him. Because realistically, we're going to need 2 or 3 players in January to satisfy Conte. And with those comments that he said after the game tonight, he's laid down the gauntlet for Daniel Levy. He's basically said, the squad's not good enough. I need proper backing. I need the players I want. And hints of, if I don't get it, I'm off. Wasn't it really? That's what the gist was there. It was. So
yeah.
I'm actually shocked, and I don't know why. You know, when I think I'm shocked at the result because of who Mura are, and then I think about these players and the attitudes they've got, and the fact that it's so obvious some of them do not want to be at this football club, and then I think, why am I actually shocked? I didn't enjoy any of that tonight. I mean, we probably did play better with 10 men in patches of the game, but there was so many poor performances, Rick. There was absolutely nothing positive to take away from that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for. I mean, listen, there's all many comments agreeing with you here in terms of what people have coming through here. Paul, you know, when we look at this side, and I just will put it into perspective now because I've got it here. It is quite unbelievable. You know, a reminder that, you know, from a UEFA coefficient perspective, their ranking is 341. They're the lowest ranked team in this competition. They were formed in 2012. Also, when you say you take into the case where for Spurs now, by no means it's going to be an easy feat to qualify. Paul, give us your overall thoughts. I know you've seen Spurs for many, many years and probably nothing surprises you anymore with Tottenham. But just as you think nothing more can surprise you, Conte's through the door, and that's the kind of performance that we serve up. You know, surely these players, some of them that are on the fringes, as we've said, Frank saying they failed the audition, surely they should be looking to impress this man.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't look, as Frank said, it didn't look like it tonight. I think one of the biggest problems we got is the chairman's record of turning players over, turning players around and selling players on is not particularly good. Which means when Antonio Conte goes in and says, I don't want him, I'd like them to go, it proves quite difficult to shift them because the way he tends to work in the market is he has an unrealistic valuation for the players he wants to sell and an unrealistic valuation for the players he wants to buy most of the time. So trying to, you know, I can just see a scenario where we're getting quite late in the window. And Conte has made it clear there's 3 or 4 players that he doesn't see involved in the squad after January. And him and Paratici are constantly saying, has he gone yet? Has he gone yet? They're turning up in training like a bad penny, bringing everybody down, knowing they're going. And he's saying, not happy with that deal. Want another $5,000 we might have to do. You know, I could just see it getting to the stage at the end of January where it's a complete mess. And there's 2 or 3 players that Conte didn't want that end up not being moved on. And I'm slightly fearful he might walk. I just think he's the kind of headstrong. He's proved it in the past. He's quite a headstrong guy. And so unless he does get that kind of support and he gets the turnover of players and he gets the ones in that he wants and the ones out that he doesn't want, I just can't. I mean, and also we got players that are going to be very difficult to move on. Dele Alli has not had a good game for 3 years. I mean, he's had 5 or 10 minutes in games, but he's not had a good game for 90 minutes that I can think of in 2 to 3 years. So what would Daniel Levy's valuation be of Dele Alli at the top of the market? Knowing him as he did, he probably would have wanted, I don't know, 50, 60 million for him. He's not going to get that now. Who's going to take a chance on a guy who's not had a good game for 3 years? I mean, there's a lot of players. For example, I mean, Ben Davies is seen as a stalwart, but he's bang average. Really, if you want to be in a top 4, you don't want players like Ben Davies there. I know he's an international, but if he was on sale tomorrow, who'd buy him? Swansea would probably buy him back. Who else is going to buy him? There's no one above us is going to be, this is the thing. Quite a lot of those players are going to be difficult to shift. Matt Doherty has been an absolute disaster as a signing. I saw him in the Passos game and was down on that touchline watching him. It was awful. I mean, we saw it tonight, his delivery. Every ball into the box, is going to hit the first man. It's like a mirror image of Davis on the right-hand side. So it's all very well to say we want these players gone. But unless the chairman is incredibly realistic about what they're worth, they're going to be sticking around. They're going to be there till they're 60.
Has it surprised you, Paul, before I bring Michee in there? Has it surprised you just the decline on some of these players? We've not even seen the best of Doherty, let alone, we're seeing the worst of him. Dele Alli, another one you mentioned there. I mean, Ryan Sessignon, maybe young kid, has obviously had his season disrupted by injury. Has it not surprised you, though, like I just said, the absolute decline in the players? I mean, over a period for some of them very quickly, some, maybe not so long. Has that surprised you at all?
Yeah, I think we've all been shocked by Dele because we all keep thinking, we saw what he was capable of. We all keep thinking that's going to happen again. He'll be back. We'll see the old magic. But we don't. I mean, we just see this guy wandering around, occasionally putting himself about a bit and risking a red card as he did tonight, which was daft considering we were down to 10 men, leaving a foot in on the keeper. It's just, I mean, I don't know, he's like a tribute act now. That thing that we all had a pop at Mourinho about, saying, you're Dele Alli, you're Dele Alli's brother. I'm sure Conte's thinking the same thing, and I can't think of a player, as we were saying earlier on, that there's been such a decline in. He was such a good player. And it's quite shocking. I mean, it's not all about him, and I'm not singling him out.
No, you're right.
But I mean, I think he's a kind of symbol.
Do you know what it is? There's so many of them. You can't actually do the basics. It's incredible. We've got so many players in the squad that can't do the simplest of tasks. Yeah. And we're supposed to be a top 4 or challenging for a top 4 club, and it's mad. I find it crazy.
I don't think we've been a top 4 club for a couple of seasons now. We don't deserve to play in the Champions League. We wouldn't even survive in the Champions League. And you can tell we've got an outdated team. So we've got an outdated team, and it goes to Paul's point, as in, but how can we restructure it? Because he could value Harry Kane at 150, 200 mil, but he's not playing. At that level, we know that as top Spurs fans, he hasn't performed at that level to be requesting that amount for him, and it goes for the rest of our players as well. It's hard to kind of offload the dead weight that we have in our team because we know how Levy is in the transfer window, and it kind of leaves us in a position where we're sitting ducks at the moment, because how are we going to make change if we're unable to offload these players? It's an interesting time in our club where we've seen where we can be, we've seen where we've ended up, and where are we going to go next?
Yeah, I just think at the moment, there's been such a great, and I have to say this, with Conte coming in, there has been this real now expectancy for Spurs to almost now once again regain that almost top 4, top 5 status. I think tonight, as I think we've said here already, this is a massive reality check of just the job what Antonio Conte has got on to really transform this Spurs squad, not just on the pitch, but off it as well. I just think there's such a lot of work to do. And when I joked to you at the start there, Paul, about, the fact that he's going to stay, all joking aside, he will know that a result like tonight will give him, a lot of understanding, I think, in terms of the job ahead of him. On the screen there, Joey says, refreshing to see a manager call out these wasters early doors. The reality is, as we've seen this all before with the same bunch of players. And, Frank, you picked up on it, a lot of these players failing yet another audition under another manager. And we have to make that point. A lot of these players, they've played for 3 or 4 different managers now, from Pochettino to Jose Mourinho to Ryan Mason in there to Nuno Espirito Santo, and of course now Antonio Conte. And again, just to put it into perspective, Frank, I think this is one of the most embarrassing nights for us in our history, because lowest ranked team in the competition, lost their previous 4 games, and mid-table in the Slovenian league. I mean, I think to even go into that concept of just how Spurs have managed to lose that game with the quality on the field, can you put an understanding as to why these players just simply aren't, it feels like aren't trying, which is a very strong thing to say because, again, as a minimum you expect the players to give 100% commitment on the field. Do you feel like, Frank, the 11 out there tonight, or certainly some of those 11, aren't trying?
We've got a lot of bad characters in that dressing room, in my opinion. And our recruitment's been shocking, if we're being honest. That summer of 2019 window, we always talk about it. It comes up every single time we have a bad performance because it cuts deep that we spent all that money and not one of them has been any kind of a player for us. We've not seen the best of any of those signings made in that window. Matt Doherty, again, for Wolves, he was actually a fantastic player, slightly different role. For Spurs, we haven't seen anything of Matt Doherty. I don't think he's had a good single 90-minute game. And we've just, unfortunately, managed to sign a collective of players that, A, are not good enough, and B, tend to just not be the best characters. You can see that. It's clear in games where you don't see him running. Tanguy Dembele, he just, for me, just hasn't got the desire. He's the enigma we will talk about. He's got this ability. He finds the game easy. You will never get anywhere at the top level with an attitude like that, where you can't even get yourself fit for 90 minutes. He just doesn't seem to want to be a top Premier League football player, and he's our record signing. And we've now, and Daniel Levy's got to be realistic now, because we are falling away, as we've just said, from where we were in that top 4, then top 6. Now, last season we finished outside of the top 6. So Daniel Levy has now got to change his ways in a sense that he's got to be realistic for what he's going to accept for these players. He's got to do everything he can to offload them. And they've got to, wherever the money comes from, they've got to back this manager because he will walk. And we need players. The squad needs a lot of surgery, and it's not going to be done without a lot of money being spent. And that's the bottom line, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, Paul, to come back round to you, 10 seconds to see out a point and results elsewhere all of a sudden means that, we could have still topped the group. But, look up and see the defending. It's just so hard, I think, Paul, to just accept the manner in which some of our goals are conceded. I mean, the first goal tonight, listen, we're going to come on to it, was a great goal. I mean, I still think Sanchez, like any defender, anyone in the game would tell you, see the guy to the byline as a minimum. He doesn't get that shot across. But I just think, again, only Spurs could do their best to get not to have a competition and then burning themselves an extra 2 matches in it. I mean, what do you... Paul, I mean, put it into words. When you look at that performance overall and the players who got out there, for you, is it a lack of commitment, effort, desire, or is there more to this, like Frank says about maybe characters in the dressing room, that does meet the eye, in your opinion?
I think some of it's characters. I think we're back where we were when Pochettino first came in, and he had a way of playing and training, and those players that didn't buy into that, he told the chairman, and that was probably the only time. I mean, we saw that with Cabal and Capoue. They moved on quite quickly, and so we did see the chairman back the manager. So he's going to have to do that again, but I think he's going to have to do that with knobs on. I mean, I think this is not just 1 or 2 senior pros that aren't buying into a way of playing and a way of training and a methodology. This is probably 4 or 5 players. I don't think we're going to get more than 3 in before in January. I mean, I think they've got their eye on 3 players, and they don't understand that's kind of what he's been promised, and he knows the kind of players he wants. But I think to pay those wages and the fees for those players, we'll probably have to see about 5 go out. And I think, we could probably count those off. But again, if you look at a player, we only just bought Matt Doherty. I don't know, what we spent 15 million quid on him. So what would the chairman's expectation be on that? Does he expect to get his money back? Is he a better player? Has he got a better reputation now than he had when he left Wolves? Absolutely not. So on what basis do you expect to get that money back? I think they would argue that was quite cheap because maybe he was coming towards the end of his contract. As we said, what are a lot of these players worth? And would January be a good time to sell them from that point of view? So a lot of it comes back to who we can get rid of and who we can get in and how that's managed by the chairman. I think that's fairly key. But there are players that didn't play tonight that if Lo Celso had been out there tonight, do you think he would have made the difference? I've got to be honest, probably not based on what we've seen. Steven Bergwijn got a great goal last week for Holland, and he did look mightily pissed off that he wasn't involved the other day, having done that. But again, had he been out there tonight, we've seen in other games in Europe, would he have made the difference tonight? So it's not like we can say there were players there that could have made a huge difference. Otherwise, apart from that first run when Sonny came on tonight, I thought he was poor. Kept giving the ball away cheaply, running up blind alleys. I mean, again, it was kind of infectious tonight. And look, I'm sure the players will say the pitch was crap. It was really bobbling. You could see it was a bit like a beach ball on the pitch. But you can't. They can't possibly use that as an excuse.
No.
Now, I've got these quotes actually. Rick. It's worth
Yeah.
bringing you what he actually said. This is what Conte said. I'm happy to stay here, which is you picked up on, which is good of him. But we have to work a lot. We have to work a lot to improve the quality of the squad. We are Tottenham, but there is an important gap with the top teams. But I am not scared, he says. Then he said, after 3 weeks, I'm starting to understand the situation. It is not simple. At this moment, the level of Tottenham is not high. Now, it's quite good sometimes that he doesn't pussyfoot around because his English isn't stunning. So he just says it. And so, he's right. And there's not a fan saying, how dare you to that. They're all saying, yeah, spot on. We could have told you that after 3 minutes, not 3 weeks.
Can I ask you, Paul, on that quote you said, I'm not scared. Didn't say, I'm not terrified. It didn't say I'm terrified, did it, at the end of that one?
not as far as I know.
We left that little bit out there.
Yeah. And the players, to top it all, they got, as you say, they got Burnley Sunday, and they've now got a 2-hour bus trip to get back to the airport because the airport they flew in on, you can't fly out of at night. So they're 2 hours on a bus. And great. And it's great preparation for a trip to Turf Moor. Chris Wood's elbow in your face for 90 minutes.
I tell you, do you know, well, just to follow on Paul, what you said in those quotes, Michee, to come around to you, I've actually got another one here. He says, we have a lot of desire to work. You can work. You can push a car at a maximum level, and sometimes it is not enough to be competitive. I think that's a really, really telling quote because I think that in itself tells you just generally some of this squad, some of these players just don't really seem to care. And I think they all know that some of them reach their sell-by date, to not name names. Michee, is this going to be a massive job for Conte to really transform this Spurs squad into the mould in which he wants it to be?
Yeah, and the good thing is that I'm happy about he's actually aware of that. The worst thing I would have thought would happen was maybe if he came in and thought, okay, it's not that big of a deal. But for him to say it as harshly as he did, just like how Paul has said from these quotes, it lets me know that at least he knows the work that has to be done. And I know that from what I've seen of Conte in the past, he will do his best to get the job done. And quite frankly, our team needs it. I mean, it's gotten to the point where, I used to have a lot of energy to kind of be like, we played crap, we played this. But at this point, I mean, are we really shocked? And that's kind of the energy that I have towards it at this point. And with someone like Conte coming in, he's probably the perfect manager that we need at the moment to kind of revamp our whole situation. And like I said, the fact that he's aware of that, I hope that he knows what needs to be done, and I hope that he makes the right decisions. He just needs the backing. That's what I believe. He just needs the backing. As long as he has the backing, then I'll give it maybe 1 or 2 seasons where I can see a big difference in the team.
Yeah, I mean, Frank, let's come back round to you because, again, we say Conte might be, and we know he's a great manager. He is a serial winner. He does get the best out of players. He does improve players. But you do feel there's only so much he can do with what he's got at his disposal here with his current squad. And, most of these players, and they were bought for decent money, only 3 to 4 seasons ago. So, Frank, how does he go about for you looking to transform this squad, in your opinion?
Well, he's obviously he's been successful in turning around teams that have been on the slide historically with Juventus, Inter and Chelsea. Chelsea, was it 10th they finished season before he came in?
9th or 10th, yep.
And I know they didn't have Europe the next season, which is obviously I think helped. For instance, is like tonight, this 2-hour bus trip we've just spoken about from Slovenia. But he's got a proven track record, but quite frankly, he needs backing. We can go around the houses, we can talk about all these different variables, but it's all to do with recruitment. If he gets the right players in and the right characters, obviously the team will progress and get better. If he doesn't, it won't. It's that simple. And there is a distinct lack of quality in this squad. Technically, if you look at the way that our players, I mean, I know they're a different level to us, but watch Manchester City, Paris Saint-Germain last night. The way that those Manchester City players take the ball on the back foot and in tight spaces, they're so comfortable technically, they're so fluid. We haven't really got any players like that at all. They're not comfortable on the ball, technically not the best passers. I mean, we haven't got a playmaker really that gets 10 or 15 assists a season in that squad. With some intricate passing or a conductor in the team that doesn't give the ball away. We haven't got those types of players. So it all goes back to what I said. It's recruitment. He's got to buy the right players that fit his system. And until that point, he could do all the coaching in the world. He might get a bit more out of this squad. But, if anything, for instance, before January happens to Kane and Son, we are in a big bit of trouble. And that's another issue we've got to sort out, outside of, obviously, Kane, when obviously not the Premier League this season, and Son in general. This squad has got a distinct lack of goals in it.
Yeah.
How many goals have we scored in the league this season? 9? Is it 9? 10? No, 11
Yeah,
now.
I mean,
it's 11 now, isn't it?
It was one of those things that Frank, I was actually raving about, Frank, on the fact of the weekend that, we were getting goals. I know it's only 2 of them. It's how mad I'm getting raving away with 2 goals now. But goals across the pitch now, the likes of Reguilon, obviously, of course, scoring, Højbjerg scoring. Can I just say, the person on the screen now, I hope that isn't actually Ben Davies, so they've all got much better players than we have. Because that's worrying if Ben Davies is actually on this right now.
He's on that 2-hour, he's trying to while away that 2-hour bus ride, probably listening to us.
If Ben is watching us, please, Ben, have a word with Conte and improve this squad. But let's come around to you, Paul, because I think, in a way, some fans will feel that's almost a good thing that result has happened tonight, to give Conte a realisation of just how poor this squad is. And again, it's a message that they feel maybe Conte will give to the board as a need to we know there was talks in the summer. They broke down for whatever reason. Conte, obviously, now they've moved from again. You feel they've grovelled back to him and said, look, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you here. When we've discussed the likes, Dele, Doherty, although they're young, obviously, the likes of Rodon, Tanganga, Sanchez, Galini. And then on top of that, Sessignon and Ndombele, Lucas Bergwijn, Lo Celso. There is, like we said, such a massive rebuilding job to be done here. Do you have confidence, Paul, in this board, backing Antonio Conte to move the players out that he wants, which again, you've discussed, is already a tough job, and actually bringing in the players, specific players that he's going to want to bring in to suit his system and to improve this Tottenham team?
Unless there's been a massive change in emphasis and mentality from the board and the chairman. I mean, everything screams that nothing's really going to change. As is the only thing that makes you feel it might have done is simply what you said, that he said no in the summer and he said yes now. And there must be a reason for that. I mean, the other reason, of course, is that he wanted to get back in and he wanted to get back into management, and he probably thought the Manchester United job wasn't going to come. So he took it. Maybe he did make a compromise. Maybe we're all imagining that the chairman said, I'll give you X amount of pounds to spend in January to improve this squad. And it was interesting, that quote, which I've not seen about the car, this car. And that's exactly the same thing, effectively, that Pochettino said to Gary Lineker in that interview. And he talked about you can have a lovely house, but you need good furniture. So that's what, 2 years, over 2 years, 2.5 years ago, that message was being given to that chairman. And he never backed the best manager we'd had in decades. So I'm really sceptical that something has fundamentally changed, because I just think he's got a way of working that I think is going to take a lot for him to stray from. We look at the quality of the other teams and the way they buy and the money they spend on wages, and it's not realistic to think that we can compete with those teams like City with their wage structure and with the quality of the players that they buy. And I think that we've got players in our squad that in different teams. I think if Lo Celso was at a different team, if he was in one of the top 4 sides at the moment, I think you'd see a different player. I think you'd have better players around him and he'd look a bit better player. I think Bergwijn's not a bad player. He proved that in Holland. But he puts on that white chainmail shirt and he's dragged down to our level. I mean, I just think sometimes I look at players and I get quite excited by them coming.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, and then I see them play for us and I think, well, what happened there?
What have we done to them? What have we done to them?
That's happened too many times, but we've got no excuses now. We've got a proven coach who wins stuff. If you buy into what he does, it works. It's hard work. He makes you suffer, as he likes to say. But if you buy into what he says, you probably will get some measure of success. I mean, I'm not sure as a club we're at the stage that, we've not at the stage. Chelsea had better players when he went into that team than he's got at the moment. And this is, he's probably only going to be there for 2 years because that's the way he tends to operate. But it's going to take him all of that time to turn this squad over. So I'm sceptical, Rick, to be honest, that we'll. I hope it's changed, but I don't think the mentality's changed at board level. But we'll see. And if it hasn't, it'll be gone February the 1st.
Yeah, you think mentally for 2 years, and even for that hairpiece 2 years, otherwise it's going to cost them a fortune again to go back there and get it put back on. I tell you, Michee, we'll come around to you, like I say, to close this segment of the show. But effectively, when you're looking at it now, this road to Tirana is looking bumpy. So Spurs are going to need to beat Rennes by 2 goals better than Vitesse to beat Mura to qualify. We can no longer, obviously, of course, win the group outright. The fact we're even looking at these permutations, a result between Vitesse and Mura to hopefully finish second in a group of a Europa Conference League level is beyond embarrassing. It's a group that really we should have walked. When you look at the quality of this group, it's beyond belief that we're even here. But just to make it clear, as far as we understand, Spurs will go through if they better Vitesse's result, realistically having to win. If both teams win, Vitesse need to improve their goal difference, which is currently +1 to Tottenham's +3. However, if Tottenham win 1-0 and Vitesse win 3-0, Vitesse would progress overall on away goals. My God, that's a lot to get your head around. I'm not a mathematician. Basically, effectively, after all that, Michee, it's going to be very, very difficult. Can we still do it?
I mean, is our team even good enough to put that amount of expectation on them? That's the thing. That's the thing. And it's very telling. I mean, it's interesting the points that Paul made as well. Even someone like Bergwijn who came, and when he first came, we were like, oh wow, like playing against Man City, he scored on his debut. And to see going down the line, seeing what's happened to him, I wouldn't necessarily say decline, but he came with such potential and promise. For him to just kind of blend into the team says everything about the team and the dressing room and the mentality. I mean, is it does it make sense to put that much expectation on the team that we're seeing? No. I would like to think that we can win, because where does that leave us then in the conversation about English clubs competing at top European level? Where does that put us in the conversation? So I'm not very confident, but I hope for the best. I think we all do.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fair to say that generally the route to now qualifying, it's not going to be easy at all. And I will ask you guys later in the show whether this competition is worth it. Bearing in mind, of course, we've got a massive Carabao Cup quarterfinals coming against West Ham, which to me, massively important for the football club now. Massively important. Of course, FA Cup still to come. But we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners on audio. For our watching audience on YouTube, thank you so much. Nearly 500 of you watching us live on a Europa Conference League group stage night. God, I can't wait to not be saying that anymore. Please, Antonio, do something, do anything. Stop us from talking about Europa Conference League nights on the Last Word on Spurs. Do you know what, Paul? I've got a lot, because I think we had you on one night during the glory years of the Champions League. So now to bring you on to a Conference League night, I do apologise in advance. But the story of the game itself, I mean, Spurs, we made 9 changes for this game. Obviously, Conte already indicated that he was going to rotate for the match because he had some tired legs from that starting 11 at the weekend. Spurs were already without Christian Romero, Giovanni Lo Celso and young Dane Scarlett, while Dutch winger Steven Bergwijn reported sick on Wednesday and unfortunately did not travel to Slovenia. Starting, of course, Dele Alli, Brian Hill, Ryan Sessignon, we knew beforehand, Conte said would start. Of course, we had Harry Kane on the field, Javed Tanganga, the only 2 players actually to start from that win against Leeds. Elsewhere, there are plenty of players who needed minutes, starting the likes of Sanchez, Rodon, and Sungyeon Dembele, started in the centre of the pitch, along with Oliver Skip. And again, typical Spurs, Paul, behind after 11 minutes. Now, Horvath took full advantage of that slip from Sanchez with a beautiful curling effort into that far corner. But there will be that argument, Paul, that, if Sanchez just shows him down the line, as I think I said to you very early on into the show, that goal just doesn't happen. How frustrating is that? Because Sanchez is one of those players where I know, he does polarise opinion. There's some that will feel, again, under a new manager, maybe there's something in there with Sanchez that is still left in the tank to get the best out of him. What do you think, Paul, and the way we consider that opening goal?
Yeah, I think on the TV coverage, Glenn was pointing out it wasn't just the slip; it was the fact that he didn't read the pass. So it took him a while to realise where the ball was going to be played. And even though he's quick and he made up the ground, as you say, it doesn't show him outside. Clearly, this guy has got previous for cutting inside and scoring with his left foot, and they hadn't done their homework. And it's a ridiculously soft goal. It's a good finish, but it's a soft goal to give away. And when I remember when Sanchez first came in, there was times when there was a bit of Ledley about him. He was very quick. He could make up the ground if he did make a rick. But slowly over time, it's just not trained on. He's been diminishing returns. And I look at him and he's always got a mistake in him. There was that period when it was him on the right of sitting behind Aurier. And that was a complete disaster area, the pair of them. I mean, thankfully that's changed. But I mean, look, often his pace gets him out of trouble. But again, he's another one. We've got so many players that you look at, you think they're all right, they're
It feels
fine.
like copy and paste, repeat upon repeat, Paul, doesn't it? Sometimes.
And if you just kind of looked at a lot of the players in our team, you're saying if they were going to be on the market tomorrow, who'd buy them? And then how many of them are teams that are in the top 4? And sometimes in the top 6. I think there's a few that West Ham would turn their nose up at, to be honest. So, I mean, you have to kind of question in your recruitment. You look for a Chelsea team, you look for a City team, and then you could think of some of the best clubs in the world that would want those players in most positions. Some that they bought kind of ready-made, and others that didn't look much on paper and have worked under Pep and been coached under Pep and have become better players. It's an awful lot of our players that you look at and think, where would they go? What sort of clubs would they, they're players that might go to Southampton and stuff like that. You think, well, why have we got any realistic expectation to regularly be top 4 or 6 if that's the kind of level of player we're buying? And, maybe it's a fault of coaching as well. Some of these guys may go on and be revelations somewhere else. They might go and be brilliant. Who knows? But there's players that for some reason good players that have not trained on at Tottenham. And sometimes I can't quite work out why.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Michee, just come round to you. I know, obviously, you've got to leave us, obviously, probably after this question. So, on Davinson Sanchez, it was some real iffy defending for that Mura goal early on. I say before he slipped over. I mean, he was fortunate, actually, I thought, to remain on the pitch on the 52nd minute, where, he did improve as the game wore on. But, threw it all away as he was turned inside out in those final seconds before deflecting Moretta's shot past Galini. I mean, overall for you, Michee, before you go, on Sanchez, have we already seen the peak of him at Tottenham, or is there anything more to come under Antonio Conte for you?
I mean, I agree with Paul. I saw similarities between him and Ledley in the first few matches I've seen him play in the first few periods. At this point, I'm not sure where I stand with him, and I can understand why we're looking at defenders, why Conte is looking at buying defenders, because when you look at the options that we do have, they're not cutting it. That's just the best way. That's the most polite way we can put it. They're not cutting it. So that's where I stand, and I think we have seen the best of him, in my opinion, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. Michee, just before you leave us, where can everybody find you on social media on a night where Spurs fans need some kind of distraction? Where can we find you and your details?
On my Instagram, it's Michee_artist. My Twitter, Michee artist, and everywhere else is the same thing. So hopefully, guys, there's better days coming along. I mean, we've been hoping for a long time, but it just is where it is at this point.
Haven't we just? Michee, lovely to have you with us. We look forward to welcoming you back to the show very soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Cheers,
Michee. Thank you so much. Lovely to see you. Frank, let's come round to you. On Sanchez, I know we've had this debate a lot of the time, Frank, with Sanchez. Conte coming in, there'll be a need for him to want to impress. I think we all felt that maybe under Mourinho, maybe it wasn't going to work with Sanchez purely on what happened previous, their history. Obviously, tease him about what happened at Ajax. I think, obviously, of course, in the final there. Frank, anything more in the tank for Sanchez, or do you think, in a way, we've almost had his day at Tottenham now and it is time to move on and look to bring in another centre-back that can be almost that light for Romero, that can, as we've said with Alderweireld, for Tottenham in the past, almost provide that telepathic partnership?
No, quite frankly. He had, do you know what? When he came in, he had a good start when he played with Jan Vertonghen at Wembley. If you remember when Toby Alderweireld fell out with Poch, he dropped him for a sustained period of time. It was quite a few games. And he actually looked okay, bearing in mind he was playing in a better team then. But gradually, I used to see another one. He's got worse. I've seen him misread the flights of long balls. There was Middlesbrough in a cup game at home was one of them. He's done it 2 or 3 times. He's a professional footballer who costs £42 million. A long ball, he's not under any pressure. He's coming towards him and he's missed the ball. He's flat-footed. I'm sorry, he is. He's very flat-footed. He gets caught on his heels. It's quite easy. If you're a player with skill and you can go in and out, you've got a good low centre of gravity, you'll absolutely have a field there against Sanchez. He's got a bit of pace, but he's clumsy, and he's another one. He's had so many chances. And again, what Paul said about Daniel Levy, what is he going to want for Davinson Sanchez? Because he cost him £42 million. And when we paid that for him, if you remember, that was before Van Dijk went to Liverpool, and that was very expensive at the time. There weren't a lot of centre-backs going for 40, 50 million pounds when we got Sanchez, and it's just been another disaster signing. We're going to have to be realistic. Take 15 million if you can get that. and get another one in, because it's not going to change with Sanchez. He's not composed enough. Playing in the back three, you've got to be able to pass the football under pressure, and playing Conte ball as well. He likes to play out from the keeper and the back three to obviously be good enough on the ball to pass and move, but he can't do that. So no, Rick, he's another one. Get rid. We have to get rid of the players like Sanchez. He's had, how long has he been here now? Was it 2017 we signed him?
It feels like a decade, but obviously it's not that long.
4.5 years or whatever. And he's just, are you going to finish regularly in the top four with Davinson Sanchez as one of your starting centre backs?
You can't see it. The hard thing, I think, when he was alongside Vertonghen, there was a real maturity about him. And I just, again, you wonder, maybe that
was Vertonghen at his peak. That was Vertonghen. Prime Jan Vertonghen was one of the most underrated centre backs in Europe, one of the best at that time. Rolls Royce, so calm under pressure, and I think that helps Sanchez, because that's obviously one of his weaknesses, that he panics. And to have that older, wiser, very cool, calm centre back like Vertonghen next to him, obviously helped. But now he hasn't got that, and he's got worse and worse and worse over the last few seasons.
Talk about cool and calm. Let's go to a player that certainly wasn't cool and calm. Paul, coming over to you. Ryan Sessignon. It's such a disappointing evening for him. 2 yellow cards, a real disaster for him, because, of course, he was hoping to make a statement. Really needless, and it looked deserved from where I was from watching it. I don't think there's a real justification to say how he could have stayed on the field. A real daft challenge to make in a real nothing area of the pitch, Paul. I mean, how do you put into words, an opportunity there to take it? Conte really bigging him up before the game as well. Just a real disaster evening for him, wasn't it? Down to 10 men, a goal down as well. Exactly what we didn't need at that point in the game.
Yeah, I mean, Conte couldn't have done any more to sort of big him up. He got him into the press conference. He made a big show of the fact that, he wants to give him a real chance, because it's a position, he's going to play with wing backs, and that Sessignon's position. He's not really a full back. It's always much better doing that. We saw that at Fulham. And I mean, the first one was just, definitely a yellow card. The second one was just a stupid challenge to put in when you've just been yellow carded. And he'll be sitting on that 2-hour coach trip now, just mulling it over. I bet he's got the old headphones on, doesn't want to talk to anybody, and just trying to zone out, because he knows. Look, I don't say he's wasted an opportunity. I saw him in that Passos game, because he played in that. And again, looking at him quite close up in the half he played, working that left channel, he's kind of devoid of confidence. He was like running at players, almost hoping that they take the ball off him. I don't sense he's got no swagger about him. I mean, when he was at Fulham, he was quick and he was direct, and he'd score lots and lots of goals. Quite often he'd pop up on the edge of the box and he'd score good goals. And he's never looked that through. I know he's had a very stop-start time. But again, it's incredible how he's just not trained on at all. He's been there for quite a long time now, and he's been in and out, and he's been on loan. And talking to one or two of our guys that cover the Bundesliga for talkSPORT, did all right at Hoffenheim. He did okay, had a couple of good games, but I don't know. It's just one of those players again. He's just, you think that he was decent at one point, but somehow we seem to have knocked that out of him. I don't know.
we always find a way.
We're like Midas in reverse, Tottenham, aren't we? Really?
He doesn't seem to do anything with conviction. I think he's definitely a confidence thing. Very tentative in his decision making. He sort of always caught in two minds, and perhaps it is the fact that his confidence is just gone. Perhaps
you have to have some swagger, Frank. If you're playing in that position, you've got to be prepared to. You're effectively a winger, if you like. You're running players, you're taking them on, you're using your strength, you're using your pace, and you're believing, I'll beat you, I'm going to be quicker than you, I'm going to be stronger than you, I'm going to get into those, popping up in good positions, etc., to receive the ball, maybe score goals. You don't see any of that. I just see a guy that runs often in straight lines and is incredibly predictable, which is such a shame. I think he seems like a good kid, and I'd like it to work out for him.
Well, he came really with good pedigree. If you consider the fact that he won the player of the championship season, and how old was he? Was he 17 at the time?
Yeah.
17, 18. Yeah.
So, again, going back to what Paul said, we buy these prospects, and before they came to Spurs, they'd achieved everything in their careers or whatever level they've been at with aplomb, and then they seem to come to Spurs, and I don't know. But He's another one that has huge potential, but we haven't seen any of it with Sessignon. Not any of it.
I must stress, I really hope none of our January upcoming signings are watching this. The likes of Vlahovic, Brozovic, if ever you're watching, please turn off. We would like you to join us. It is so tough. I mean, on like I say, Sessignon, it was a real disappointing return for him. He had a shot blocked early on in the box, but already picked up the yellow card at that point. And then 32 minutes, a real reckless, needless challenge to make. I mean, then we fast forward all the way back, Paul, now to Harry Kane, 72nd minute, grabbing a really important equaliser at the time for Spurs. It was a real nice finish from a tight angle. Paul, do you ever hope for Kane that will give him the confidence, the belief that he will go on now a goal-scoring run in the Premier League?
I don't know. He still looks. I mean, look, he carried us tonight. He looked. I mean, he had that. He tried to get that shot away. When he looked up, there was nothing on. When he was on the left-hand side of the goal, and he cut in and tried to get a shot off, and it got blocked. But you know, it was like a sort of almost a school captain's game. So he wasn't at his best, but he tried to make something happen when nobody else was. And we're still looking for him to do that. And I still think there is a massive hangover from the fact he didn't go in the summer. And look, that may change under Conte, but nights like tonight are not going to help. I'm sure last night he watched the City game. They'll watch the City game. This sort of sublime performance. It's they were just absolutely brilliant. And if you're sitting in a hotel in Slovenia thinking that could have been me, and tomorrow night I'm going out to play against NŠ Mura, the equivalent, we've been told, in European rankings to Burton Albion and Accrington Stanley. That's where they are with their UEFA coefficient. So basically what we've done, it's like the Grimsby, when we lost to Grimsby in the Cup years ago.
Yeah.
What we've done tonight, we've lost to Burton Albion or Accrington Stanley in the Cup. That's the equivalent. And if we were sitting after a League Cup or FA Cup game, we'd all be saying what an embarrassment that was. So we have to put that into the perspective of what's gone on this evening. So I do worry we're going to see the best of Kane for a while. I think that'll have a lot to do with January. If he sees 2 or 3 players come in that he rates and he trusts, and he sees a change in mentality and everything else, but I still he doesn't look.
He looks leggy.
He looks
doesn't
leggy.
Fit, does he? I said that weekend.
I think it's a bad cocktail with Kane at the moment. Of obviously the hangover from the failed move. He looks leggy. He looks like he needs another couple of weeks off somewhere from the Euros. He's still got that hangover, and he's also trying to do too much because there is no creativity in our midfield. And again, you see it in every game. It's talked about in the media, in the press. Why does he drop so deep? He does it because he doesn't get the service that he needs. Yeah. We're not laying on chance after chance in the Premier League for him. I know he had a good one at Leeds. He should have scored, or rather against Leeds. But I think he's trying to do too much as well as everything else. And it's just a bad combination at the moment. So we need a player. We all know we need a creative player. And that has to be sorted in January as quick as that, because it's affecting Kane's form. He's getting frustrated.
Do you have a concern though, Paul? I mean, looking at it, I thought the appointment of Conte would have at least given Kane the confidence to know the club are looking to go in the right direction. And of course, as we know, in the summer he wanted to go. There's no doubt about that. Nobody questioned that. So he wanted to go. If the money was right from City, he would have gone. How difficult is it, Paul, for him now to kind of, in a way, get his head around that mentality fact that he wasn't leaving? And then Conte coming in, does that in itself change his mind? Or do you think he's still hell-bent that if a move came in January, say, from a Man City, he'd want to go again, in your opinion?
No, I think if he saw there was, to be honest, I think that ship has sailed with City. I can't see, he wouldn't go in January. There's no way Tottenham would sell him in January, and Conte would allow that. He would definitely walk. So if you talk about next summer, and they're going to go after Erling Haaland, who is going to be expensive, but he's younger and is more cost-effective buy. So I think that's the other thing with Kane. He probably thinks that chance to go to City has gone. Maybe a chance to go anywhere. Looking at the money that clubs like Barcelona have got to spend, which isn't a great deal. So his options are quite limited. And I think that is a frustration for him now. But look, there was no way that Conte was going to change it overnight. It was always going to take a bit of time. He's had an international break. He's had hardly any time with the players. He would love to get them out on the training pitch and start drilling them. But he's got game after game, League Cup games, this run of Cup games, league games Thursdays and Sundays that are about to kind of kick in throughout December. all the Christmas programme, then the FA Cup. So it's going to be a while till he can get them back out on the training ground and properly drill them. That's going to be a frustration for him. So I think Kane would accept it's not going to be an overnight job. But as I say, if he sees 2 or 3 players come in and he thinks, aye, the chairman's changed his mind, he's serious now that he's going to back the manager. We are going to go into another level. We're going to have a team that, matches our property portfolio. I'm not altogether sure that will happen, but if Kane starts to believe that, I think you could see a change of heart from him. But again, a lot of it's going to have a lot to do with that. He's going to ask them to put their money where their mouth is, and we'll see.
Yeah, as fans, I'd say we will as well. Kane in general, Frank, to come on to you. I mean, like I say, struggled to get into that game first half until Skip, I say, passed the ball into the box, turning before shooting just wide of that right-hand post. He did step up in the second half with Lucas and Son around him, and the equaliser was a fine chip. I have to say, it was a lovely finish. He did have a decent number of half chances in that second half that he should have done better with. Frank, I remember you saying on this show, and I know you've been on for quite a number of shows this season, that we'd be fools to not think Harry Kane will score goals in this Tottenham team. Do you still stand by that, Frank, that we will still see the best of Harry Kane this season in the Spurs shirt, and he will go on a goal-scoring glut at some point during this season under Conte?
Well, I hope so. And I mean, it's a tough one because in the Premier League, he quite simply hasn't done it, has he? But the team have been poor. All the underlying stats are XG for creating chances and shots in the box and so on is really, really poor. And he's now hit a bit of a difficult spell, Harry Kane, and there's no one else sort of digging him out of the hole, laying him on chances, squaring balls in from 6 yards and laying on tap-ins, which he does get more of in England because he's playing with better quality players in that squad that create him really easy chances. So there's a part of that concerns me because, again, the creativity factor in this team has been poor. But I'm pretty sure, I mean, I would be very surprised if he didn't go on a run soon. I mean, it will be difficult for him to get 20 Premier League goals now, which is incredible to think it will. It will be tough. Yeah. And I think massively what Paul says, in my opinion, is huge. If he sees a sign from this club in January, and I keep tweeting this, that January's massive because it's more than just getting the players in or giving Conte a couple of players. It's what Kane sees. Is this club ambitious? If we get 2 big names in or £50 million players in, for instance, or Vlahovic and Kessie or something like that in January, does that improve his morale? Because all of a sudden he realises that there's ambition. Also, the players that are on their way out, because I'm pretty sure he's frustrated, Kane, playing with some of them players. Do you think he wants Dele Alli behind him? I mean, tonight, he can't even pass a football 10 yards. And I'm sure he is incredibly frustrated with some of the players in the squad. So January for me is huge. We've just got to trust Conte until then, and I hope that obviously his coaching and his methods gets that extra 5 or 10% out of some of these players. And then January for me is massive for Conte's future, for Kane's future, and for how this club are going to finish this season as well.
Yeah, totally agree. On the screen there, Michael Pinney says, playing devil's advocate, have this group of lads been set up to foul? No game time, so super desperate to impress, then all put on the pitch together. I mean, Michael, on that point, I just don't know. I mean, there's players on that pitch tonight that have been playing quite regularly this season. I mean, even, we're going to come on to Dele shortly, even a player like Dele Alli, he did start the first few games of the season. I just think, as we've said on this show tonight, there's a number of players there, for whatever reason, have simply, I think, know that their time at Spurs is coming to an end. And I still find it incredible that under a manager of Antonio Conte's CV, of the passion that man brings, and yet even then we're going 3-4 managers, how we can't get a performance from some of these players. I mean, just to touch on Galini. Now, of course, we know Galini, he's got to make, I think, 20 competitive appearances for the club in all competitions to trigger a long-term contract. Paul, to come back round to you, I mean, you can only watch Horvat's curling shot on the 11th minute tonight, and other than that, watch another effort go past him. I don't know, Paul. Galini, what do you make of him? Are you confident that if we was to lose Hugo Lloris, who, of course, at the moment, as we understand, there's no talk of a new deal in the offing, is he good enough to be the club's number one from what you've seen of him so far, Paul?
No, not at all. Not yet. I mean, he was Atalanta's number one, and they had a very good season, and he played a lot of games for them. So he comes with a pedigree, and, it'll take him a while to adjust to this league. But he made a couple of ricks in 1 or 2 of the earlier European games. And so the jury's still out. But look, he's a young guy. He's hardly played. He's not had a chance to kind of get a rhythm together. So it's very hard to to judge him. But if Hugo Lloris was to go at the end of the season, I wouldn't be thinking, well, it's great, we've got a ready-made replacement. I mean, there's these stories about Pickford.
Henderson.
We've always known Hugo's distribution as putrid. It always has been. It's always been terrible.
We always said
throwing it or kicking it. It's a line-out ball every time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hoof didn't. He's just been always. I mean, he's been a great shot stopper. Over the years. But his distribution.
He's probably. I hate to disrespect him. His distribution is probably the worst in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But you know what though?
How often do we see him just aim a little 9-9 straight in?
He
looks up and he can see a player and he'll just sort of slice one right in the touch. But he spends a lot of his time just with his hand in the air apologising to players, doesn't he?
Do you know what's funny though? I've always said this, and I still maintain this. I think if he did have the distribution as well as all these other attributes that make up his game, I don't think he'd beat a club like Tottenham.
He wouldn't be at Spurs. No, he'd be. Honestly, it's a bit like a boxer saying if he had a punch, he'd be the world champion. It's
but trust us to have the boxer that does have a punch. That you couldn't sum Spurs up in a better way than that. You really couldn't. Frankie, Japhet Tanganga, he started on the right tonight, that back three, but switched to the left of a back four following Sessignon's red card. He then moved to right back following the flurry of substitutions early in the second half, pushed up high on the pitch and then tried to get forward, but didn't quite have the quality in those latter situations. Do you see Tanganga, Frankie, for you being one of those defenders for him in that preferred formation in the Premier League?
I'm not sure. I think Tanganga is a very good backs against the wall defender. He'll put in a lot of blocks, very brave, but for me, he's not a good enough actual footballer to be a fullback or a wing back. He's not. No. Is he good enough on the ball to play right side in that back three? No. Romero is streets ahead of him. With Japhet, I like his attitude. He's still very young, particularly for what traditionally is a centre-back, isn't he? So he's still very young. He's got a lot of developing and maturing to do, but he's not, again, he's another one. Does he start for any of the big four or, Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, City? Doesn't get anywhere near their squads. He doesn't. Are we going to get top four with Japhet Tanganga in our starting lineup? No, we're not. So perhaps with Japhet, there was talks Nuno was going to send him away on loan in the summer to go and play week in, week out somewhere. Maybe that might be on the agenda for Conte. We're hearing that he's in for two centre-backs. If that's the case, then it's quite clear what he thinks of Tanganga, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Interesting, obviously, of course, Eric Dyer coming on was solid at the back during that game. Another defender, Paul, that has been it's been speculated on that he might be allowed to leave on loan. How true those are, I don't quite know. Joe Rodon, he was flat-footed moments early on, but would have felt he could have done better on the night. He was taken off just 7 minutes into the second half. It's funny, Paul. A lot of people that see Sanchez and Dyer play, they're almost screaming, why has Rodon not been given more of a chance? Are you one of those as a fan? I know you're a broadcaster as well, but Joe Rodon, should he have been given more time from what you've seen from him so far in a Spurs shirt?
When he signed, funny enough, the day he signed, John Hartson was in the studio, I think, with Jim White before us, and I'd not seen a great deal of him. So I said, "What's he like?" And he said, "Yeah, he's a good lad." He said he's a proper head on a stick centre half. He's the sort of bloke goes in there, puts his head in. He's strong, he's tough, he's that kind of player. And it doesn't hurt sometimes to have that kind of profile of player in your team. And I think again, he's a young player that's not had a lot of game time. He is an international. And I think I wouldn't want to write him off at the moment. I think he'll get better and better. So it was very interesting, though, generally, that when we found out Conte was coming, we all realised he played with a three. We all thought, oh yeah, it's great we can play with a three, which tells us that we don't think it's not two centre halves we can trust to play in a four. So we think, oh yeah, let's get an extra defender in there. So again, like Tanganga, on the right-hand side of a three, I think Tanganga works because he has got a bit of pace and he can read it. As Frank said, he's not a wing back. He's probably not a full-back, but right-hand side of a three, maybe that works. Romero is a blow. That's a real shame because
massive blow.
I think he's a really good player. And there's been shades of Toby about him at times. But again, he's gone off on international duty, got injured. We're not going to see the best of him probably now. It looks like a 6, 7, 8 week in this. A bad hamstring. So we're not probably going to see him back to sort of middle of January. And he's got to get up to speed again. And he's going to go off and play for Argentina. Probably not going to see the best of him until next season, which is a real frustration because I think he looks a player. And he looks good business.
And I think he looks also like a Conte kind of centre back. I think he's almost got that nature, and we've seen him. Of course, there's a little bit of rashness that I'm sure, like during getting to know the Premier League, the rhythm of it, it's going to take some time. Of course, he's come from Serie A. There's definitely a player in there. To stick with you, Paul, I just want to ask your thoughts on Matt Doherty. Got into some good positions down the right, but again, didn't have the quality overall. Hooked on the 52nd minute. I mean, I don't know really what's left to see of Matt Doherty. I'll be honest with you. We thought with Nuno coming in, maybe Nuno would have got the best out of him. Former manager, although of course Nuno did sell him to Spurs, so maybe Nuno did know that we didn't know at the time. But is there any chance he'll make it in a Spurs shirt for you, Matt Doherty, Paul?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen him play. When he played a right back in a four, he was a bit of a disaster. And we said, well, that's not his position. He spent all his life playing as a wing back, and certainly shone at Wolves as a wing back. And he's had quite a few opportunities at wing back. As I said, watching him in that Passos game, he was bang average that night, playing in his preferred position. It doesn't. It looks to me that maybe it's a confidence thing as well, or rhythm of playing regularly, and a manager that has some belief in you. But this is a chance to shine. This is a chance to impress a manager. And I think it's very interesting. We were saying this is a real opportunity to step up with this new boss who's looking for you to step up and say, I want to be in the first 11. And there's been very few examples of any of the players. I mean, I know it's not always charging around and putting your foot in. That's not what it's about. But, we saw Harry Winks when he came on against Vitesse in the European game. He got to come on in the second half. And he was really clearly trying to get in the manager's eye line to show that he's the kind of player that can do this job. And I've seen quite a few of these players. They're just playing on the way they were under Nuno. I don't see a marked difference. I don't see any more intensity in the way they play. And say Doherty's final ball, his crossing, it's just woeful. And he was scoring goals at Wolves. He was getting in good positions, getting in the box, scoring goals. We just don't see any of that with him. He has been a massive letdown, because I think we all felt we got a bargain for 15 million quid. But
he was the second highest scoring fullback in the Premier League behind Trent the season before we signed him.
Staggering.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Again, another player, I know Paul, you said this earlier, another player that we somehow put him in a Spurs shirt, and the weight of that shirt seems to almost crumble the inequality of what a player can become. Ben Davies, we discussed him on the last couple of shows, of course, pushed up higher the pitch, like Tanganga, like Doherty. His final ball wasn't good enough. It was his slip that let Moore break away to win the game. Ben Davies, we've been there, we've done that. How many times do we say about Ben Davies? 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. Although I think that number's slowly creeping down now as older as Ben gets. Frankie, I want to come on to Tungi and Ndombele. I know you're never too shy to tell us your thoughts on Tungi. Back in the team, the Frenchman did play a fine ball over the top for Hill early on in that game, but the Spaniard couldn't take full advantage of the opportunity. He went on a few driving runs that opened up. Moura came off with 15 minutes to go. I mean, there'd be an argument at least he tried to make things happen. Is it quite telling, Frankie, so far that Conte has said he's got to work harder than anybody else to get a break in that Spurs team? And the fact that he didn't start at the weekend, of course, does that in a way already show you with Ndombele there's still a lot of work to do to prove to Conte that he is going to be given an opportunity in the Conte side in the Premier League?
Well, I'm not sure, because Conte loves players with the right attitude, application, and those that work hard. And as we've seen for nearly 2.5 years now, isn't it, since we signed him, he just doesn't seem to me to have that want and desire to be a top Premier League player. I just don't think he's got it in him. I might be wrong, but all of these managers, when Jose came in, he didn't play him initially, did he? He absolutely crucified him after Chelsea away, where he said he didn't have a midfield. There was another game as well where he initially crucified him. Nuno as well didn't play him to begin with, and Conte's done exactly the same. Now, whatever you think of those three managers, they're not idiots, and they all have the same opinion that when they arrive at Spurs, Ndombele is still not in the right condition to play consecutive Premier League games. And this has been the case for 2.5 years. He didn't have the Euros or an international tournament in the summer. I know his missus had a kid. I understand that, but he didn't have a kid. He's not been away on any of these international breaks. And he might naturally just be one of those athletes that looks like he's blowing as soon as he starts running or starts exercising. But he looks spent after 50, 55 minutes in every single game I've ever seen him play. I do not know what we're going to do with him. There's rumours today on, I think, Alistair Gold or
Alistair Gold,
one of the Spurs outlets saying that Conte
wide of the
wants...
mark. Yeah, wide of the mark that he'll be. From Alistair saying it's wide of the mark reports that he's being considered to be sold in January.
Well, I've just seen a couple of tweets and there's speculation anyway that Conte wants him gone in January.
I think it's quite telling, Frank, that after working with him for about 12 days, he did the press conference for the Leeds game. So he's had a small squad of players, so no distractions. He's looked at Dele, he's looked at Ndombele, he's looked at Winks, he's looked at all these fringe players that want to prove it. He's had 12 days on the training ground with him, and he goes into a press conference for the Leeds game, and he says Ndombele's got to have to change his attitude. He's going to have to work hard. He's going to have to become more of a team player. And he says, I'll play him or Winky, which was a new nickname. I'll play him or Winky at the weekend. And, of course, he played Winky. And he saved Ndombele for, Burton Albion on Thursday night. Well, I think that tells you a lot. It does tell you a lot, doesn't it?
It tells you that everything.
Looking at him close up for 12 days, he thought, and working him, he thought, no, he's going to have to change his attitude. As I said, the great thing about Conte is his English is not great. It will get better as it did at Chelsea. The longer he's here again, he's out of practice. At the moment, he just basically says it as it is. He doesn't dress it up. It's no niceties. He doesn't soft soap it. He basically just says what he's thinking, like, I'm happy to stay. Mad stuff like that. So we're going to get the kind of raw truth from him for a little while till his English is up to speed again.
Oh, we won't argue about that. I mean, under Nuno, we didn't get a word of anything. It'd just be stroking the beard for a good half hour, 45 minutes on the touchlines.
But sorry, just to interject there, I think we've got to sell him. I think, we could all speculate that he can become this player. We're guessing. We're absolutely guessing because we haven't seen any evidence or proof of it. Apparently, he had attitude problems in his early career in France, with intense training and so on. It's just another sign we haven't done our homework on properly. And it's the most Tottenham thing ever that our record signing has constantly got fitness issues and lack of desire and can't last 90 minutes. That is the most Spursy thing ever. £65 million. Thank you very much.
That could be the real sticking point, Frank. You talk about we need to sell him. But when I said earlier on about the chairman's valuation of a player and what he's prepared to sell for, I mean, he's probably more likely to go out on loan because, from an accountancy point of view, they just don't take that massive hit straight away. But I just don't think. I think he's going to want an unrealistic amount of money. 65 million quid. What's he worth? If you're going to try and sell him in January, what would someone be prepared to play for a guy?
£20 million, I reckon.
Well,
he's probably worth around that.
Everything tells us that Daniel Levy is not going to take a 45 million hit on a player. We saw it in the documentary. He more or less said to Jose, "You've got to get a tune out of this fella." That's what he effectively said to him. There is an expectation that when the club spend that sort of money, coaches have to get the best out of this player. And it's whether the chairman is prepared to take the kind of hit that he needs to take. And again, who's going to take him? You're going to look at him.
Another Premier League side would not
take him. Yeah,
who's going to pay
another
his wages?
Premier League side, exactly. Another Premier League side would look at him and say, well, he's not cut it in this league, so he's not right for us. He could go back to France, but France don't pay anything like that, really, unless it's PSG in terms of wages and transfer fees. So he's going to be a tough player to shift.
They all are, though. Paul, you hit the nail on the head earlier where you said that a lot of these players, they're not going to get better than Tottenham, and a lot of them are on big wages. So why would they be in a hurry to leave when they've got the luxurious training facilities, which is their workplace every day? They play or they sit in front of this, most weeks, in front of this beautiful stadium. They're being paid huge amounts of money to live in the best capital city in the world, probably. The incentive for them to just go isn't there, is it? So we've got problems trying to shift these players. For many reasons.
Yeah, I've just said though as well, and I've said this before on many shows, and people feel this is a broken record. But what other club would you be at for 3 to 4 seasons underperforming so consistently, and yet still be given a start? But again, it is a new manager. Of course, he was always going to wipe the slate clean. Oliver Skipp, he set up Kane for a chance early in the box in that first half. Worked incredibly hard in a thankless role in that centre of the pitch. Some wayward passing, but I think Skippy is always one of Spurs' better players on the night. As Antonio Conte calls him, hobby. He came on with 15 minutes to go and attempted an effort from near the halfway line in the final 5 minutes of normal time. I'm going to have to get used to that nickname from Conte, hobby, I tell you, to get some getting used to that. Brian Hill, he sliced a good opportunity over the crossbar after heading on and Ndombele's ball over the top, created some half chances for the others as the first half wore on. He did also get hooked in that quadruple substitution. A player that we've given so much time to on this show, and conscious of time as well, we need to squeeze in a Burnley preview, but we will just give it a couple of minutes. Dele Alli, we'll start with you on this, Paul. Again, Dele Alli. Some nice touches in that first half, but he contributed so little to the game. I think it's very difficult to see, Paul, and I can see you shaking your head there already, where he's even going to fit in to an Antonio Conte Tottenham team. Do you agree? Is there any role for Dele in the team, in the squad at the moment?
I think Dele at his best is the kind of player that you will build a team around, but not at the moment. Not now. I with every game, you just keep thinking, give him another chance. It's going to come out. We're going to see the player that we all saw before.
Yeah.
And you're just constantly disappointed. As I said, I can't, he's not played well for 3 seasons. I mean, how can you have a player that it's kind of just running on a reputation that just appears to have gone? So I just think it's reached the point where he needs a change. I think that's the thing. I think this is pointless. It's pointless from our point of view. It's pointless from his point of view. He needs to go somewhere else. Maybe Newcastle. I don't know. But again, they may. I mean, I think the old chairman may be slightly away. You won't want to make other teams in the Premier League stronger. He would probably. I'd say he'd like him to go abroad. But if it's true that he didn't let him go into PSG on loan, maybe that's not the case either. But something's got to give. Something's got to give with Dele Alli for his sake and sanity and chance to progress. And if he's going to do that, I don't see him getting any better at Tottenham. I think that ship has sailed, definitely.
Yeah, Frankie, I know we've had these debates on here, on obviously, of course, the WhatsApp group as well with the boys. Dele Alli, Frankie, is there anything more to see now, or is this now done? And January, let's get him the move. That's going to benefit him, I think, as an individual, as much as us as a football club, because it just feels at the moment where towards Dele, the atmosphere amongst Spurs fans, when you go onto Twitter, which we know Twitter can be quite a toxic platform in itself, you see some of the comments towards Dele. I just feel for his own career, as Paul has said as well, maybe he just does need that move. Do you agree?
I've said that on here a few times. I think the last show I've done, I just said for him, more than us even, he needs to move. He needs to get out of London, in my opinion. He needs to go somewhere new, get out of his comfort zone. Maybe it might be his Lingard moment when he went to West Ham, because obviously we've seen there is a talented player in there somewhere, but he needs to move. I think he's got bored at Spurs. He's been there perhaps too long. He's been through all of the heartaches that he misses, the failures, the semi-finals, the finals, the failed title challenge, or 2 seasons where we challenged. I think he's mentally exhausted at Spurs, and he should be, if he wants to get back to any kind of level again, he should be knocking on Daniel Levy's door saying, I've got to go. I need to move. And we know that Jose tried to move him on loan to PSG last Christmas or last January rather, and Daniel Levy got the move, which goes back to what Paul was saying earlier about players in and out. He can be a hindrance at times, Levy, because really, with hindsight, we should have let Dele go to PSG. It might have been a good move for him under Pochettino, but we'll never know.
He could have done 6 months there and come back refreshed and could have played for us, and he could have found his mojo again.
Could have got his sell value up for us, because obviously we're not getting anywhere near. What was he worth at one point? As we've said before, he must have been worth £80 million.
Absolutely,
when he was putting the numbers up, he was putting up.
That Champions League against Real Madrid. The Champions League.
No one put up numbers like he did at that age for those 2 seasons. No. We haven't seen anything like that from a midfielder, not even Lampard or Gerrard, when they were at that age, which is quite remarkable, really, which makes his decline even more extraordinary, because it's been a huge decline, and he's got to go now to go and find himself again, and we've got to move on from Dele Alli.
Lucas Moura, it was his pass that both Moura defenders left to each other and in the end ran through to Kane for the leveller. A couple of driving runs, but he just couldn't find a way through, with a late shot sailing over. Heung-min Son coming soon after, embarking on a great run across the Moura half and box before forcing the keeper into a flying save. Guys, I'm really conscious of time. We'll try and do a couple of minutes on Son, then squeeze in Burnley. Paul, very quickly on Son. Are you concerned by his form at the moment? I know a lot of people are, I have this debate all the time about Son being world class. And for me, I've already said with Son, I just feel Son is just slightly below that level, because as we see at the moment, he's going through the last 3 or 4 games where he just isn't quite at that optimum level where he was against City, stepping up, becoming Spurs' main man, Should there be a concern over his form at the moment, Paul?
No, I think he's in a team that's underperforming. He's one of those that he didn't have a great game tonight. He gave it up a lot, but he always works really hard for the team. He always looks like a goal threat. I don't particularly worry about him. I think he's going to have a future at the club, and I think that he'll be a player that Conte likes because of his attitude, and he's got us out of jail quite a lot over the years. So I'm going to give someone like Sonny a free pass at the moment. Morea is a player that he does frustrate. He is a bit like a dog chasing a balloon, isn't he? He always looks like he's just about to lose control of the ball any second. It's always just slightly a few yards away from him, and if he gets in good positions to shoot, we saw tonight, he often skies it. But again, at the moment, in a pretty underperforming team, he's wholehearted. He always wants the ball. He's occasionally got a bit of a rick in it when he's in our half of the pitch. So there are frustrations with him, but he's down my kind of list of concerns to an extent. Even among the forward players we've got, or those players like the Celso and Bergwijn that maybe have not really turned it on yet. Morea, you'll probably get anything between a 6 and 8 out of 10 from him in games.
Frankie, on Heung-min Son, any concern for you before we look ahead to Burnley to come? Do you back Son to go back to the form that we know he's capable of? Is it just a case, as Paul says there, it's an underperforming team at the moment that's maybe low on confidence?
Perhaps he's hurting him, but Son, if we go back in time, Son his form's always been quite patchy. And in certain away games, he can have some shockers. But as Paul said, he's got more than enough credit in the bank from Spurs fans because of the fact that he's contributed so much. And it also goes down to the fact that we do miss that creator, that conductor type in our team that can find him in good positions more than we do. Because a lot of the ball he gets, he's got 2 or 3 players to beat. He's not getting the ball in behind from a splitting ball that opens up a defence because we haven't got that quality in midfield. We haven't. So I think that affects him. But I just think with Spurs at the moment, there's so many flaws in that squad. I mean, again, collectively, we're not playing well enough. So to sort of single out Kane or Son when they've literally been carrying this team now for how long, we can't. We've got to look beyond those. And there's not enough other people in the team that contribute numbers. I know the game isn't all about numbers, but goals and assists win you football matches. And we don't have enough in our squad to compete at the highest level at the moment.
No, fortunately we don't. Conte, after the games you touched upon, said, I'm here to stay. I'm enthusiastic to work, read into that what you will, to rebuild the situation at Tottenham. We need time, but also to do things better in everything. We have to improve everything to have ambition. Ambition in football is improvement for me. I want to be honest, we have a lot of work and to improve many aspects. We have to do better at many things. It's funny, Paul, what you said, because of the English there with Conte, in a way, he's actually quite raw and honest. And I think in a time where he'll polish that up, maybe we won't get such as the honesty of what he does say, but he says that he's no magician. I can only work, and that's what I do to bring work and improve what I've got, my ideas. But we have to understand that we need time. I have found players that want to work and have great commitment, but sometimes that is not enough, which I think is really quite telling of some of these players. He says, after 3 weeks, I'm starting to understand the situation. It is not simple. I'll tell you what, he's been here 3 weeks. Troy, how many years is this combined the Spurs fans here?
Could have told him this 3 weeks ago, Rick.
Yeah.
Well, see, he can control. He's talking there about work. That's something he can handle. He's talking about improving players. Again, that's down to him. But when he talks about ambition, that's handing that to Paratici and the chairman. He's saying, well, the chairman, because he holds, whatever Paratici wants to do, he's completely, at the behest of Daniel Levy and the board. So unless they back him and Conte, and so when he talks about ambition, he's saying to the chairman, put your hand in your pocket. I need better players. That's clearly what he's saying after 3 weeks.
That is worrying, isn't it? 3 weeks in, he's already saying that.
But I'm convinced, just to interject there, I am convinced, and I know you sort of had a conversation about it earlier. I'm convinced that Conte would not come to Tottenham unless he had backing. There is no chance that we'd go through that whole cycle.
You can't imagine
letting him down, sacking him, just another season write-off. I can't see the board and the owners thinking that way. I can't. It doesn't. There's no logic there.
Not with Paratici there now. I don't believe that.
No, not at all. Well, I mean, we've got somebody specifically in for recruitment. What he's done so far, I know they've all been young players, but he seems Emerson Royale's been a solid addition. Romero looks brilliant. Brian Hill's very raw at the moment, but he's going to continue to obviously try and find the right players. And him and Conte have worked together before. They've got a proven track record, so they have a great relationship. And I just cannot see him agreeing to come and work with his old friend for a club that's not going to offer him any money. I can't see it.
Conte finished our press conference by saying, at the moment, there is a big gap between Tottenham and the best clubs in England. And my God, don't we know it? As I say, Paul said they're the equivalent of Burton Albion we've lost to tonight. We are going to go for our final break of the show for our listeners on audio. You're going to hear from a couple of Burnley podcasters that have kindly taken out the time to give us their thoughts, their preview ahead of the game to come at the weekend. And then, like I say, for our watching audience on YouTube, I think there's over 600 of you watching us live. Thank you so much. We're going to do a quick couple of minutes on Burnley because of time constraints. Paul, let's start with you. There's a comment on the screen here from Evan who says, I'm dreading this Burnley game. It's not the place you want to visit after a Thursday night fixture and loss. And we'll put your 2-hour coach journey on there. You told us earlier, Paul, as well, with the Spurs players. This game will show us a lot. What's your thoughts, Paul, this game at the weekend? Will we get the reaction we need from this Spurs squad under Conte?
Yeah, I think Evan's right. It is the worst kind of game. Burnley away, it's a big, proper, old elbows out, old school game of football, isn't it? They work you really hard. They work you over. You've got to be up for the battle if you're playing Burnley. They've got Cornet now, who's class act. They've got some quality about them as well. They can score goals. And it's not just the kind of goals Burnley tend to score. We saw he scored absolute cracker the other day. He's a quality player, one we got to watch. Yeah, I mean, we'll find out a lot about them. They're going to be on the floor, obviously. So they're going to, I don't know what they'll do. They'll probably get back sort of early hours of the morning. They'll do some sort of training tomorrow. Then they'll probably, I don't know if they're going to, who knows what they'll do. They'll do some work on Saturday as well. Then they've got to get themselves probably straight off to Burnley. Not a lot of time to prepare for a game like this. But look, if Spurs are on it, it is a winnable game. But we'll have to see. I mean, they've got that run of games coming up.
Yeah,
Brentford, Norwich. Norwich isn't quite as easy as it might have been a couple of weeks ago. Brentford's again going to be a battle. They'll work you hard, but on paper they are winnable games, and we could now put a run of games together. But we're going to have to put in a better performance than we did tonight.
Totally agree. Yeah,
the Cornet signing, just very quickly. Cornet, another player that seems to have signed for Burnley, cheap, scored 5 in 7. We signed Bergwijn for £30 million. He's not scored 5 Premier League goals for us so far. He's been he's just incredible. Yeah, we seem to miss these.
Where are these players on the radar? Yeah, where are they? Where are they? Frankie, just on the point there Paul made in terms of Burnley, obviously played 12 games like all Premier League teams at the moment. Won just the one, drawn 6, lost 5, minus goal difference of 6, and then I say 18th in the league. 9 points so far. If we're being realistic, Frankie, if Spurs are a team that we generally believe can challenge for the top 4 this season, I must say possibly because obviously United are just on the, as we understand, on the brink of appointing Ralph Rangnick as an interim appointment, which again I think is quite a solid appointment on paper. I think it's going to make that top 4 even harder now if we've actually got ambitions of that. That's even before we look at January. It's got to be a game we have to go there and win, Paul, Frank, isn't it? Have to go there and win.
They've actually got a shocking home record over the last 30 odd games.
They
actually don't win many games at home. I know they've actually been scoring. They've turned a corner where they've been scoring a few goals recently. But again, it's a game that you'd expect us to win. It's not going to be easy. I expect it to be. We'll make it difficult because we do.
We always do.
We do. I'm actually going, Rick. So I'll be going up there. And hopefully we can dig out a result. But we'll see. I mean, the Leeds game result, you've got to look at that with perspective. The fact that they were missing key players, which if they'd had it, would have been a different game. And we still made a meal of it. We were shocking in the first half. Obviously, there was a huge, notable improvement in the second half. But I think if we start like that away at Burnley, full strength, regardless of how poor they've been, they could punish us more severely than that Leeds team did. So it'll be tough, Rick. Because we're not a top side, to be completely honest. Yeah,
I must just say, Paul, coming around to you, when I said top 4 there, I could just imagine that laughter track on the sports bar playing behind me as I said top 4 there. People actually, I could just imagine getting absolutely butchered for that. But Paul, let's wrap up the show. Let's come to you. Prediction. What are you going for, Paul? You're duty bound to give one on this show, as you know. What can you see Spurs turning out up at Turf Moor?
I think they'll be hurting from tonight. It is an embarrassing performance. Maybe not enough time to get it out of their system. I think it will be pretty ugly 1-1, to be honest. I'd love to be more positive, but yeah.
Let's come out of you, Frankie. What are you going for? What can we achieve, Frank? You're going
Score
up there,
draw.
surely.
I was 2-2
Really?
perhaps. I'd like to see us nick a 2-1 win like we did against Leeds. I know. Well, I hope the likes of Reguilon and the better players will be back in the starting 11. Who actually put in a shift second half last week. So I'd score draw. I can
Frank, do you generally think you're going up there? Do you generally think it'll be a score draw, even though they look at their league position? You know, with Conte coming in, do you not think there'll be a different mentality at the weekend Premier League?
I hope so. If we can carry on from how we left the second half against Leeds and start that way, more aggressive, more intensity, then of course we can go up there and unsettle them, because they're not individually, they're not a great side. They're just a well-drilled unit who haven't actually been that well drilled so far this season. So I'd like to be more confident, but again, you watch Spurs every week, Rick. Can you convincingly say that you expect us to go up to Burnley and roll them over? Can you hand on heart say that?
I really can't.
I
really can't. No, but I do think we are going to win. I think only based on how poor Burnley are, their home form, which you've picked up on, I think Spurs will get the job done. I'm going to go for a 3-1 Spurs win. I've got to be back on it on Monday night, I must say. So, the pain of doing a Monday night and then obviously not getting a result would kill me. Frankie, always lovely to have you on. Great to have you on. I know we've got you booked up for December. God bless you. I don't know what this club's going to do to you, but we wish you the very best of luck for travelling up to Turf Moor. Paul, lovely to have you back on with us. For anyone that doesn't know, Paul, where they can find you during the week, where can we find you on talkSPORT? Please let us know where we can find you.
1 till 4 in the afternoons with Andy Jacobs a couple of days a week, the Chelsea fan, of course, and Charlie Baker, who's a Torquay fan. He's with me a couple of days. He's with me. Well, no, Andy's there 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. Charlie's Tuesdays and Thursdays. So, but it's kind of helped this. I was thinking, after the game, I said, the only chance of pulling out, I was joking. But I thought, no, this is good. I'll get it out of my system. I'll be able to sleep better now. I've said all I wanted to say. I would have sat there stewing on this. So it's been quite cathartic. It's been therapeutic. So you can send me a bill if you like.
Well, Paul, that'll come in a post. Lovely to have you here. We'll have you back, Paul, I say, at some point during the season. As always, guys, thank you so much for all the comments. I say, appreciate it as always. Yes, I'm probably smoking something crazy thinking top 4 and that laughter track's behind me. But Frankie, lovely to have you back on. Thank you so much as always.
Thanks, Rick. Pleasure, as always.
And like I say, you have all the love from the Spurs fans going up there at the weekend. Frankie, please bring home those 3 points. Paul, we'll be listening to your dulcet tones next week, battling to keep some respect for Spurs live on air. Lovely to have you on, Paul, as always. Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure. Yeah, good to talk to you both.
You too. Guys, we are back on a later day of Monday. So like I say, hopefully it'll be a case where you've got to wait just that extra day for hopefully a Spurs win and some therapy to come your way. As always, keep safe, keep well, and as always, come on you Spurs.